The claim that I'm refuting is that capital punishment fails to deter homicidal crime. And the first secondary claim that I'm going to be talking about is that criminals do not fear the impact of the death penalty. And my challenges of evidence is that criminals often do fear the impact of the death penalty because each execution, on average, is accompanied by fewer murders. Thus, criminals fear the death penalty and murders are lowered. My reasoning challenges are that if murderers are sentenced to death and executed, then potential murderers will fear death and will think twice about killing. My counterclaim is that murderers fear death because it also follows carefully and with certainty following the cost of a murder, the death penalty. The second claim that I'm going to be refuting is that states that use the death penalty do not have an upper hand in the case of reducing homicide. My challenges are that states that use the death penalty do contribute to the reduction of homicide. In that, on average, according to a 2003 nationwide study by professors at Emory University, each execution seems to deter between 3 and 18 fewer deaths. My reasoning challenges are states that enact the death penalty do not always have a higher rate of homicide than states that do not enact the death penalty. Each state is different, and most states that enact the death penalty result in fewer homicides. My third claim is that the third claim that I'm refuting is that executions contradict the idea of killing being illegal. My challenges are that the claim that was presented is poorly supported. The evidence that was there to support the claim has nothing to do with your claim. You are talking about how executions contradict the idea of killing being illegal, then stating how it states that enact the death penalty during time of execution, homicide rates within the area often increase. My challenges are that the reasoning behind the claim that executions contradict the idea of killing being illegal can also be contradictory because enacting the death penalty takes murderers off the streets and prevents them from killing again. Someone who has killed another human being is unfit to live in our society. If the death penalty is not enacted and a murderer is off on probation, would you want them living next door to you? My counterclaim is that when an individual commits a heinous crime against society, they immediately give up their right to coexist in society. And there must be a punitive assessment against them, and that is death, an eye for an eye. If you can't do the time, then don't commit the crime.
Sounds like everybody's off time with the time change. That applause was so tepid. It's okay. You're good, actually. Like the slow clap at some movie. All right. You labeled the claims pretty clearly. Your counterclaims, on the first point, it seems like you're just kind of going through the motions. My evidence response, my counterclaim, my challenge to reasoning, and I didn't think that they got explained very well. In fact, you made a reference on the first point to some evidence that doesn't come up until you get to the second point. So that's a little confusing. When you get to the second point, you did have an evidential response on a counterclaim here that says that, in fact, the death penalty does deter. You've got one study that suggests that deters 3 to 18 deaths, but that's the only information you've got on that point, and I'm not sure that that's really sufficient to respond to the claim that the advocate presented. There's an explanation of the state-by-state comparison, but you don't really tell us why your point is valid, and there's no evidence that deals with the state-by-state evidence that the advocate presented. On the third point, you basically are presenting an argument for incarceration, not necessarily for death as a punishment, and I'm not sure why if we take them off the streets, they continue to present a problem. It's not a choice between death penalty or letting them live next door to us. So why is that? You know, I mean, that's a false dichotomy if I ever heard one. You need to be a little bit more clear on why the death penalty is the thing that makes a difference and not simply incarceration. All right, thank you.